Alright, so excuse the mess. And this isn't a P80 transmission, so it's not the same as yours, but most of the things act the same. So here you have your slave and your throwout bearing. It's bolted in 2 or 3 sections depending on the year, stuff like that. With the P2s, you have this guy that goes out into this little guy here. It's going to be the same on the other ones. Sometimes there is an intermediate piece that you might need. Check your slave cylinder. If it has this arm that goes out, you're good. If not, you're going to need the intermediate piece that goes here. And you're going to need this piece. So let's go over to an assembled vehicle. Oh, and you have this place that holds the shift cables in, and we'll go to the other transmission now. Let's go over to the transmission that is installed in this vehicle. This one's almost ready for startup, so we're gonna take a look. So there's a bunch of wires in the way and stuff, but it's pretty simple. You have these clips here that hold these in, so just move it forward so that it kind of looks like that. Push the clip in, and you're good to go. Here is this guy here. Moves nicely. I painted these just to make them look a little bit better. And for this piece here, there's usually a rubber bushing. Now what I like doing is I like setting this backwards and up, and then welding it in place. It improves shift feel overall. So that's what I end up doing most of the time, and it keeps your hand a little bit further away from the radio so you don't punch it during third gear shifts. For the bushings here, they come factory with little rubber ones, a spacer, and then this clip. We like upgrading them to the aluminum inserts that you could buy in a bunch of different places. I believe this is a Snob kit. And I don't particularly like the short throw adapters that you could get. It's just not beneficial in my opinion. To keep the long throw, shift times aren't really that big of a difference on these anyways. They don't shift super fast. So there's that. Here you can see that we have this part, which includes the bleeder and the 90 degree. There is a clip and an O-ring. You then have the line that it has a bracket here. It slips in. It comes up, it goes through where the airbox would be, and then it goes up into the slave with an O-ring and a clip. You could barely see the clip there. Let's zoom in a bit so that you can see it. Here it is. So this tube right there, that's just the drain tube for the top tray here. And to get the slave in, you just need to unbolt the booster a little bit. Not all the way, because it's harder to get the bolts back on. Let's go inside and show all that. So here's the slave, and it's attached. It looks like, so this already came to me manual swapped. It seems like this guy had the pin already shear off. That's actually common. So this guy looks like he welded it back on. So if you want to, you can re-weld that pin or weld it so that it's on better, because there's just 2 small welds on it from the factory and they can shear off under heavier clutch pressure. And this one did have a much stiffer clutch in it that we actually removed and went back to a factory 850R clutch. So the other thing here is that you can swap the entire pedal box over, or you could keep the factory pedal box, and that's what was done here. So this bolt here is in backwards actually. So the bolt normally, here, let's see. Actually, no, it's in the correct direction. So you take this bolt that goes all the way through all these pedals, You take it and you slide it out, and it kind of sits up above the fuse box and all those panels and everything, and just let it sit there. Take off the brake pedal, remove that, and swap it in with the other brake pedal. For this one here, it looks like, yeah, they used the little washers that grab, but sometimes those don't work, so you stack extra washers in that location there, where the shadow is, to take up the slack. And same thing on this side. So you can see this moves back and forth because that was not done, so it looks like I'm gonna need to do that here. So right there is where your master is, the clutch master, and there's just normally a plate there, so you undo the 2 bolts, pop it out, and shove that in. It is a little bit difficult to finagle. Sometimes it's easier with the clutch pedal out so that you can kind of finagle it in. It helps to have 2 people. It isn't necessary. You're going to need to take away the some of the sound deadening here, pull it back so that you could get access to all 4 of those nuts and back them off all the way until they're at the end of their threads. Try not to undo them all the way because it's difficult to get them back on sometimes. At that point, you can, you know, just everything goes back together. Grab a couple of washers to shim that. The other option is to swap in the entire pedal box from a manual transmission vehicle, which requires you dropping the knee bolster and the steering column and everything up here and part of the dash, which, you know, you can do. And what it does, it adds the clutch return and assist spring, which means that holding it all the way down is a bit easier, but I mean, it's already a pretty light clutch. This isn't really that big of a deal. For most vehicles, I don't even swap in the pedal box. I just leave the stock automatic pedal box, go from there. There should be a bracket like this on this side. It's not on this vehicle. It looks like it was pulled out. But there would then be another switch here, which there are, you don't need the switches for it, but you do need, if you want to maintain the safety of stuff, you will need the T-fitting for the vacuum actuator. And as you can see here, none of the cruise control stuff is here on the pedal. Remember to swap over to the manual throttle cable so that you don't have the kick down, detent, or anything like that. And you should be good. So let's go over to a clutch assembly, where I can show you how they get assembled. So here's an old dual mass. Let's see if we could find a new clutch here. Alright, so here are the flywheel bolts. Here, we'll just look them in the bag. This is what they should look like. They are triple squares, and they're deep, and they have a bit of Loctite on them. Make sure that you apply Loctite. Blue is fine, red if you're paranoid. The bits for this are, well, they're triple squares. So they look like this, right? And they are the M12 or the M10, I forget. I think they're the M10, which is why it's missing, obviously. Oh no, this is for head bolts on a BMW. It's the M12 triple square. So you're gonna need that tool. Now I'm wondering where mine is. The flywheel is pinned, so you can't put it in the wrong orientation. It is important that it's in the right orientation, so put it in the right orientation. Here is a brand new 850R clutch and pressure plate. So the clutch will go onto the flywheel. There is a side that says gearbox side. You can see it says it right there. Gearbox side. Make sure that's facing towards you. If you put it in upside down, it's not going to work, and you're going to either smoke the clutch or it won't disengage. I think it'll just smoke it. Here's the pressure plate. You set it on top of that. Use your little tool to put into the splines and center it. It's kind of loose in there, so you just kind of find the center roughly. It's not that big of a deal. You then have places where the pins go into, and then where the bolts go into. I'll show you what the bolts look like. I think I have a couple over here. Actually, I brought a couple out here for another reason, but they look like so. They're cap head Torx T45s, and they're kind of shallow because they don't need to be very thick. And you take these, you put some blue Loctite on them, you sink them in, you're good to go. And then that's assembled. You want to take a little bit of spline lubricant, or a hard grease, very small amounts of it, but there's a specific spline lubricant. And you want to lubricate the splines here and lubricate the shaft as well, the input shaft for the transmission. And I have some sitting over there somewhere. But you do not want to use any type of oil or anything that is going to sling out, and not large amounts of anything if you use it. Other than that, that's pretty much it for gearbox installation. It's not a very big deal. Here is the hose. It goes to the reservoir. It's just a simple clamp here.